Good evening and salutations, my GH fans. This episode was very similar to yesterday's episode, where there really wasn't a lot that was actually going on. I will sit there and say that, to its saving grace, just like yesterday, it is moving somewhere. Like, I feel like we're going to start to get, like, some really good episodes, probably starting on Friday. Because as you know, Natalia said that she is, well, they said that Natalia's leaving on Friday. I felt like they just wrote Natalia without a brain today. Sonny was very specific. Keep your goddamn mouth shut. So, of course, she goes to Marco and pretty much just tells him that she is skipping town and that Sonny's going to sit there and save her and start saying things where I'm just like, when did Sonny sit there and say that he was going to move down there with her or eventually move down there with her? When did that happen? When did he sit there and say that? But the thing is, Marco doesn't know Sonny. So Marco was like, Sonny's going to sit there and kill you. Like there's no other way. There's no wiggle room. Okay? You are a problem, he is going to solve it. And then, at this point, they argue a little bit more, and before she leaves, Marco's like, yo, listen, if you leave out that door, we're done. We're done as mother and son and client or whatever, like we're done. And and she does that. Now, at that point, Lucas comes in. And Marco's like, yo, listen, I gotta call the cops. And Lucas stops her. Lucas stops him. So the thing about Marco is that Marco feels that once she jumps bail, he's going to be holding it back. He's going to be the one that's going to sit there and get in trouble, may go to jail and stuff like that. And a couple of things like Lucas is like, one, you operate in good faith. So whatever she decides to do, that's on her. That's not on you. I don't know if the court is going to see it that way. I doubt it because you are an officer of the court, and it's a pretty shitty thing for Natalia to sit there and just tell you and then just dip out like that. I mean, granted, even if she didn't tell him and she dipped out, it's going to look bad on Marco. But it's going to look worse because now you told him like an idiot. So there's that. And then also, Lucas is like, you don't want to sit there and send your mom to jail. Like, trust me, you're gonna, you don't want to do that. You don't want to do that to yourself. Well, part of me was like, I guess I get it. Listen, Natalia has been a very shitty mother for a very long time. And it would serve her right, not just because she's a shitty mother, but because she's had a couple of DUIs. And that's among, like, I wouldn't say the worst crime, obviously, but it's among the worst crimes. So, like, that alone, I'm like, you can sit there and send that chick to jail. But it seems like he convinces him not to call the cops, which is probably going to be a mistake at the end, but whatever. Then she goes to Sitwell. And at first I was like, why are you going to Sitwell for? Now, I thought that she was going to go there to be like, okay, well, maybe Marco got through to her, and now she doesn't trust Sonny, so she's sitting there looking for Sitwell to, bail her out. But she gets there, and she's like, oh, me and Marco had a fight, and he doesn't want anything to do with me. And Sitwell's like, and whose fault is that? Then there's a point where Natalia's like, oh, well, this is your fault because you turned him against me. I think like people that was watching it at that point was like, nah, boo boo, you did that shit to yourself. You did that shit to yourself by being a controlling, homophobic bigot that you are. You did that to yourself. And that's exactly what he says. So Before she leaves, she's like, listen, just do me a favor. Do not let him get into the family business. Okay? You say you love him, prove it. Don't let him anywhere near what you got going on. And then she leaves. Now, what I didn't understand was, why did Boyles get summoned? See, Boyles gets down there, and Boyles is like, what's going on? And Sitwell's like, hey, listen, I tried to give Sonny a generous offer. He said no. And now I'm going to have to give him incentive. See, he had a bunch of pictures of, like, Sonny's family, Gio and Michael and pretty much everyone, right? Boyle's like, yo, I don't want to know what you got going on, what you plan on doing. And he pretty much just makes it very clear, like, one, I'm going to remind poor Charles why Sonny is so much of a danger. And two, the worse I make Sonny look, the worse her Laura looks. The worse her Laura looks, the better you look. And just pretty much sit there and say, your job is to do nothing except for pretty much what I tell you. That's not what he said, but he just made it very clear that he's in charge and, you're pretty much just a mouthpiece. And he just complies. Sasha asks Felicia to be a godmother. She says yes. And then there's a point where she talks about Holly. She's like, listen, being a parent, I can understand, some of Holly's choices and that she did things in a moment and she did things with what she felt at the time was best for me. I'm like, you've been a parent for about 2 weeks and now you understand what Holly went through? You understand that Holly made mistakes and, she did what she thought was right at the time? Like, how did that come along in 2 weeks of you being a parent? That's the part I was just like, what? But, okay, I guess they want to sit there and lay the groundwork in case they would sit there and get the actress Holly back. She talks about her dad or whatever, and honestly tell you the truth, the rest of the conversation goes nowhere. Now, there's a point where we see the baby crying and somebody's standing over her, right? And when Sasha gets in the room, she sees the baby turned in a different direction than where she left the baby at. Starts freaking out. She's like, did Michael do this? Or like, what's going on? The fact that he got no security is just a joke. But let's just move on from that. Brooklyn is still looking at Rocco's birth certificate. Comes across Danny and Rocco. They talk for a little bit until Jason gets there. They talk for a little bit. Nothing happens with those conversations. But there's a point where after they talk to Jason and Dante, they're getting ready to sit there. They came back from being in a pool. And they're about to sit there and play poker. And Brooklyn just, I don't know, just left those papers out for anybody to sit there and find them. And while Danny's sitting there clearing the table to sit there and play poker, he's like, oh, what is that? What's your birth certificate doing there? It shows Danny. See, Brooklyn went to the Metro Court, right? Dante went to the Metro Court. He wants to sit there and invite Gio to some concert, but he pretty much is just not ready. I think what's odd is that they showed a flashback of him deciding if he wanted to or not, and it's the flashback when he's breaking the piano, and he's like, I'm not into classical music that much these days. And the guy's just like, I thought you would have probably thought back to when Dante was pretty much treating you like, something he stepped on. But he pretty much kind of gave him the cold shoulder, and he left. Now, Lulu was there for a little bit, and Lulu, you would think that she had enough with interfering with other people's lives, but no. So she sees Lucas, she's like, oh, I don't trust Marco, and, Marco and Marco's dad is Sitwell, and, we don't know if Marco's into the family business, or what's his story, he could be just like Sitwell. And, of course, Lucas had to remind her, how would you feel if Charlotte was going through the same thing where people didn't trust Charlotte because of Valentine. Oh, good point. Yeah, it was a good point. You didn't need to make that because you didn't need to sit there and start putting your 2 goddamn cents into a business that was none of your own. But clearly, you learned nothing. So then, after that, she's at the pool. Some drunken idiot starts hitting on her to a point where Gio got involved. Next thing you know, as he's walking away, he slips into the pool. They kick him out. Um, and while Gio and Lulu are laughing about the situation, Brooklyn is kind of like watching from afar and seeing it and seeing Gio laugh and everything like that. And they even do like a high five. And at that point, it just made Brooklyn even more mad at her. Which I'm kind of just like, I get you want to give back at Lulu. I do. I totally 100% agree. But like, at least your son is smiling. Like, seriously, when was the last time your son was actually smiling? Maybe I'd have left this one go. Just saying, you know? I'm not just saying that she don't deserve her comeuppance or whatever, but like, maybe you ought to let this one go. um, Sonny is just pretty much debriefing Carly on not selling his peers to Sitwell and talking about Natalia. And Carly's like, I don't know if we can trust Natalia because we don't even know much about Sitwell, and if he planted the firebomb or if he didn't plant the firebomb, or you know, Natalia could have been out there telling all sorts of secrets or whatever. But Sonny's like, hey, listen, I'm gonna take care of Natalia. Don't worry about that. Now, if this chick winds up dead, Carly's gonna sit there and think that he did it. You know? Um, then after, his strikeout in a sense with Gio, talks to the kids for a little bit, Dante and Rocco, because they want to get in the pool, and of course it's against the rules for the staff to be kind of hanging out at the pool or whatever. So Dante gives him some advice or whatever, and then apologizes to Jason for essentially being an asshole and judging him on his parenting skills and everything like that. And Jason forgives him, and Dante vents about how he's still not getting that far with Gio, and Jason just kind of gives him some advice as far as, which is a little kind of odd because I'm like, Jason, you're not exactly the best dad, so like, it's just like, I don't know what kind of advice you're gonna give him, but okay, just tell him to kind of just chill out and just listen. Your son's gonna come to you eventually. You just got to give it some time. Now, I'm gonna be honest. I feel like that is generally about it. Like I said, this episode was mostly filler. There wasn't really too much in-depth conversations. But now tonight I'm not going to be streaming. I'm actually going to be at JLJ Media. Um, I'm actually going to be at JLJ Media or James Lott Jr. tonight at 10 p.m. Eastern. I don't know exactly the Pacific, but 10 p.m. Eastern. I'm going to sit there and be there. Um, with that being said, I'm going to go. I'll see you in the next video. Anything I forgot or you found important or whatever, let me know.